Hello. I've got worms. That probably sounds like inappropriate sharing, but I have got worms. I've got millions of worms. You see, I work on worms. Yeah, I can feel the waves of pity. But don't feel sorry for me. I work on one of the most fundamental problems in biology. I study how genes build an organism. Now, we study genes by breaking them. So we take a worm, we break its genes, and then we see what happens to it. And it's an immensely successful approach. Well, not for the worm, obviously. And people come up to me and they often say, well, how can you do that? I mean, that seems vaguely immoral. I mean, breaking genes and studying it, is that the right way of going about things? And I'm okay with it now, but when I first started in my career, I also had misgivings. You see, at the time, I was reading Lord of the Rings. Now, there's a section in Lord of the Rings when Gandalf is going to visit Saruman the White. Saruman the White's having a bit of a wizard's midlife crisis. And he doesn't want to be called Saruman the White anymore, he wants to be called Saruman the Many-Coloured. Now he explains this to Gandalf, and he says, well, white light, when it's split up, when it's broken up, it's colourful. And Gandalf, for some reason, really takes exception to this and says, he who has to break something in order to find out what it is has left the path of wisdom. So I'm thinking, Gandalf's probably not going to be down with the genetics, is he? So I thought long and hard about this, and I decided that I probably needed to get a life. So I became a worm geneticist. And I haven't really looked back since. I'm quite okay with it, except at parties. At parties, I just say that I'm a geneticist. I try and keep the worm in the background. Inevitably, people pry too much, and I have to reveal that, yeah, I'm a worm geneticist. And there's two reactions to that. The first reaction is people backing away or making excuses to move away. And then the other reaction, and it happens quite a lot, is people get enthusiastic about worms all of a sudden. Almost like they sense that I'm uneasy and they want to make me feel better. So they say things like, worms, they're fascinating, aren't they? Because they're really important for the soil. And is it true that if you cut a worm in half, the two halves will go on and they'll each grow and become a whole new worm again? And I look at them and I say, I don't know, I don't work on those kind of worms. You see, the worms I work on are called Caenorhabditis elegans. Now, it's Latin for something, but I never found out what it was, because when somebody first told me that's what these worms are called, I thought, that sounds Welsh. So I look down the microscope and I think, there's Gwyneth, that one's Gwendolyn, oh, there's Stacey. See, my worms are all girls. There aren't many Reeses or Gareths, and they get on perfectly well like this. You see, my worms don't really need males to reproduce. They have this really neat trick. So, at one point they decide to become males for a short time, and as males, of course, they make sperm. And so they take that sperm and they store it away in this little pocket-like structure. Now it's called a spermatheke, but it's probably easier for you to think of it as, say, a teenage boy's wank sock. and then they change sex a bit later on. And once they become female again, then they take that sperm and they fertilise their eggs with it. So they quite literally go and fuck themselves. So this is quite a neat trick, and they make about 300 sperm, and so they can fertilise about 300 eggs, and they can do that in about 3 days. So within 3 days, they've got about 300 offspring. So think about this. This is a single parent, okay, that is both the mother and the father of 300 children. If there was an invertebrate Jeremy Kyle show, this worm would be a shoo-in for that. Now obviously I spend a lot of time on my own. And when I'm on my own, I look down the microscope, I sort of daydream. And you think, well, making 300 copies of yourself, that's quite a neat trick. It's almost a superpower. You think, well, what would sort of superhero with that power be like, and what would they do? Well, obviously to acquire that superpower, you'd have to have, these days, not radiation anymore, it would have to be some kind of genetic accident. And you're probably thinking, well, that's ridiculously far-fetched. But a couple of years ago, an accident like that befell me. I stabbed myself in the thigh with a glass needle filled with worm DNA. Now, there weren't really any effects. I had to go and fill in an incident report form. Which at the time I thought, Bruce Banner, I bet he never had to fill in an incident report form when he had the accident that turned him into the Hulk. Or at least we never saw that. But imagine if the transformation had taken place and my gonads had become worm gonads. So within about 20 minutes, copies of myself would start appearing. Now, we won't speculate on which orifice they'd emerge from. but suffice to say, within three days, I'd have made 300 copies of myself. So what could you do with that? Well, you could take over the world, maybe, or at least attempt to take over the world, kind of like Agent Smith did in the crappiest of the 3 Matrix movies. But I thought, that just seems a bit passé. So I thought, well, what I would do is I've got 300 copies of myself, so I could set some of them to writing grants. Because if I could get that many, if I could submit that many grants, I'd surely be successful with one of them. The rest could then do the research work, and then maybe a minority of them could write the papers. And meanwhile, I could swan around the world, getting basically famous, not rich obviously, but famous on the work of all my 300 copies. I might even show people at conferences my spectacular gonads. Now, it's probably apparent to some of you that in my daydream, what I was actually doing was, rather than daydreaming about taking over the world, I daydreamed about just becoming a better worm geneticist. Now, the charitable of you amongst you will say, well, that's good, that suggests that you're happy with your chosen avenue in life. Perhaps the less charitable of you, probably the ones at the back there, you're probably saying, yeah, that just confirms you're a sad, weird loser. But one thing I realised with my daydream is that I think I've made my peace with Gandalf. Because although he'd probably disapprove of worm genetics, I think he'd approve of the fact that I've walked away from the path of darkness and stepped into the light of worm genetics. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen,